A Texas farmer wakes up well before sunrise. He walks out to check his field. 8 months of work, thousands of dollars in seed and fertilizer. Gone. Not damaged. Gone. The soil is torn up like someone drove a plow through it all night, in every direction, with no pattern at all. This happened to farmers across Texas for years. Wild hogs came at night, ate what they wanted, destroyed the rest, and vanished before anyone could stop them. Farmers tried everything: fences, guns, bounties, traps. Nothing worked.
What are they capable of?
They're very destructive. If I looked at it on average, I could lose up to 10% of my grain crops.
Here's where this story stops being one you've already heard. The breakthrough that finally worked wasn't a bigger gun or a better trap. Part of it came from an artificial intelligence model built by Google, tested against millions of camera trap photos, and confirmed in a research journal this past May. And it's already reshaping how this entire fight gets fought. It started, though, with something simpler. A small group of farmers changed their thinking. They stopped trying to catch a few hogs at a time. They built something that could remove an entire family of hogs in one move, using a smartphone and a camera. It worked so well that other farmers copied it across the whole state. Then this year, that same camera system got folded into the AI story, and we'll get to exactly how. This is the story of how that happened, and why it took so long to figure out. To understand why this animal is so hard to beat, you need to know where it came from. In 1539, a Spanish explorer named Hernando de Soto brought pigs to Florida as a walking food supply. Some escaped, some were let loose on purpose, and they spread out and lived wild in small numbers. In the early 1900s, wealthy landowners brought in Eurasian wild boar from Europe for sport hunting, kept behind high fences. Fences fail. Many got loose over the years, found the descendants of those old escaped farm pigs, and bred with them into something new. Fast growth and big litters from one side, toughness and sharp tusks from the other. Here's the part most videos on this topic leave out. The population didn't explode because of anything that happened in the 1500s or the early 1900s. It exploded more recently. Starting in the 1970s, some Texas landowners illegally released wild hogs onto their own hunting properties because hunters would pay good money to shoot one. It was a choice made for profit, and state officials didn't shut it down until the 1990s. By then, the hogs were already everywhere. A single truck could carry a dozen hogs across a county line at night and unload them onto a lease nobody was watching. Multiply that by hundreds of leases over 20 years, and you get a population with no single starting point. It had dozens. That's the real reason Texas has millions of these animals today. Not an old accident, a shortcut for quick cash that got out of hand. Why can't farmers just remove them? Start with the numbers. In 1982, the United States had about 2.4 million wild hogs. By 2016, that number had grown to almost 7 million across at least 35 states. In Texas alone, there are an estimated 2.6 million, and every year they push into new land, spreading north by several miles. Texas farmers and ranchers lose well over $100 million a year to hog damage, from ruined crops, broken fences, and fields that need replanting from scratch. But the real problem isn't how much damage one hog can do. It's how fast they make more hogs. A female hog, called a sow, can start having babies before she's a year old, with 2 litters a year, 4 to 12 piglets each. Do the math, and you get a population that doubles faster than almost any other large animal in North America. Here's the number that matters most. To simply hold a hog population steady, farmers have to remove around 70% of it every single year. Miss that number, and it grows even faster the next year. That's the trap. Farmers weren't just fighting hogs. They were fighting math, and for a long time, the math was winning. These animals are also smart. Studies have compared their problem-solving ability to a young child. If a trap catches a few hogs from a group, the ones that get away remember exactly what happened and stay away from that trap for the rest of their lives, teaching that lesson to their young. Most of the damage a hog causes doesn't come from eating crops. It comes from the way they move through a field, using their snout like a shovel to dig up roots and grubs underground. A sounder of 20 or 30 hogs can tear up hundreds of square feet of ground in a single night, knocking down fences, cracking irrigation pipes, tearing open riverbanks. Faced with all of this, Farmers tried the obvious answers first, and almost none of them worked. Hunting seemed obvious. No closed season, no limit, hunt day or night. But hunters chase trophies, the biggest males with the biggest tusks. And those males aren't driving population growth. The breeding females are, and they kept right on breeding while trophy hunters posed for photos. Bounty programs backfired even harder. Pay cash for every dead hog, and suddenly, hogs on your land are income instead of just a problem. Some people fed them to keep them around. Some illegally moved hogs to new areas just to collect the reward. Box traps taught the enemy instead of removing it. Catch 1 or 2 hogs from a group of 20, and the rest run off remembering exactly what happened. They never go near that trap again, and they teach their young to avoid it too. It started to feel less like pest control and more like chess against an opponent that never forgot a single move. Aerial gunning, the pork chopper method, killed hogs fast but scattered survivors for miles, often turning one farm's problem into 3 neighboring farms' problem. By this point, farmers had tried everything, and every method either failed outright or made the next attempt harder. Something had to change, and it wasn't going to be a new gun or a bigger trap. It was a different way of thinking entirely. The breakthrough didn't come from a new weapon. It came from a new question. Instead of asking, how do we kill more hogs, farmers started asking, how do we remove an entire group at once? So there's nobody left to learn and nobody left to teach. The answer had 3 parts, and each one solved a problem the old methods couldn't. It started with the camera. Not just any camera, a cellular trail camera, the kind that sends a photo straight to a farmer's phone the moment it detects movement. Before this, farmers had to walk their land to check for hogs, leaving human scent everywhere, which made the hogs more cautious. Now, a farmer could sit at home and watch his property through his phone, seeing exactly when the hogs showed up and which ones led the group. Night after night, the photos revealed something farmers hadn't expected. The hogs weren't moving randomly. They followed routines, using the same trails, arriving at nearly the same time. The oldest sow almost always entering first to scan the area before the rest followed. The camera became more than a surveillance tool. It became a classroom. This is where that discovery from the beginning comes in. For decades, the camera side of this system had a hidden bottleneck nobody outside the research world talked about. A single trail camera project can generate hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, of photos. Most of it blank frames triggered by wind or shifting light. Sorting the real animal photos out of that pile has always required a team of people, and it's slow. At Washington State University, researchers led by ecologist Daniel Thornton were used to spending 6 to 7 months, sometimes a full year, just getting through the photo backlog from a single study before any real analysis could begin. In May of 2026, that changed. Thornton's team ran an actual test. Nearly 3.8 million photos, captured by 1,200 cameras across Washington State, Glacier National Park in Montana, and a jungle reserve in Guatemala, all fed into an AI model called SpeciesNet, built by Google and trained on 65 million labeled camera trap images covering roughly 2,500 species. No human review at all. Then they compared its conclusions to the ones human experts had already reached the slow way. The AI matched the human experts' conclusions 85 to 90% of the time, with almost all the disagreement concentrated in the rarest, hardest to identify animals. And it did the entire job in days. As Thornton put it, we're not trying to replace people. The goal is to help researchers get to answers faster so they can make better decisions. For a system built entirely on people watching camera feeds and waiting for the right moment, that's not a small detail. It's the difference between a bottleneck that used to eat half a year and one that barely exists anymore. Patience came next, and it mattered just as much as the camera. Farmers stopped trying to trap hogs right away. Instead, they built a large corral, sometimes called a suspended trap, because it hangs a few feet off the ground with no bars for the hogs to step over, then left the gate open and fed the hogs there for 1 to 3 weeks. No trapping, just free food. A farmer counted heads every night, waiting for the whole group, including the oldest female who senses danger first. Closed the gate too early, and the whole process started over. The farmers who succeeded were willing to wait an extra week, rather than act one night too soon. But the piece that actually changed everything was the trigger. Instead of a tripwire, any single hog could set off by accident. The gate connected to a signal the farmer controlled from his phone. Picture the screen at that final moment. 21 hogs inside, then 22. One small piglet still hesitating at the entrance. It turns back and steps inside. Only then does a thumb touch the button. The gate drops. No gunshot, no warning. 1 second the hogs were eating. The next, the whole group was caught together. This is why it worked so much better. Old-style traps caught less than half a group on average, around 48%. The new remote-triggered traps caught closer to 88%, sometimes every single hog. Because nobody escaped, nobody taught the next generation to avoid the trap. The breakthrough was never about building a smarter trap. It was about becoming smarter than the animal. Farmers also brought in one more tool for the hardest-to-catch groups, the Judas pig. A single hog is caught, fitted with a GPS collar, and released. Because hogs are social animals, it goes looking for others, leading researchers straight to a hidden group cameras alone might never find. One trap on one farm was a good start, but hogs don't care about property lines. A farmer could clear every hog off his land, only to have a new group wander in from his neighbors the following week. So farmers started doing something simple but powerful. They started talking to each other, sharing camera footage, and warning neighbors when a group was moving their way, turning separate battles into one connected effort across an entire area. A trail camera catches a sounder crossing a creek bed after midnight, and within the hour, 3 neighboring ranches have the same warning on their phones. Every trap along that route baited and waiting before the hogs ever arrive. This kind of tracking has gotten more advanced behind the scenes. Since 2014, USDA researchers, led by geneticist Timothy Smicer, have collected DNA samples from more than 23,000 wild hogs nationwide, building a family tree for the whole population. That confirmed something farmers had long suspected. A lot of the spread isn't natural. Texas hogs have turned up in more than half the states studied, and in several cases, the genetics proved a population hundreds of miles away had been started by hogs deliberately trucked in. There's also real money in this now. A good remote-triggered trap costs $2,000 to $6,000, and that price alone keeps small landowners out of the fight entirely. Michael Bodenchuk, director of Texas Wildlife Services, oversees a state grant program meant to help counties afford equipment, and it isn't close to enough. I have about $100,000 in grants, and I get about $400,000 worth of requests, he said. So I'm disappointing more people than I'm able to help. One idea that has worked is a trap loan program. A landowner borrows a trap for a few weeks, uses it, and passes it to the next property. In LaSalle County, officials used grant money to buy welding metal for a local high school shop class so students could build traps to sell or loan out. A few $1,000s in scrap steel, and a county has a new generation of trappers. There's income on the other side of the ledger too. Processing companies buy trapped hogs by the pound, and the meat gets sold as wild boar, sometimes shipped as far as Europe, where it's a delicacy rather than a nuisance. It won't cover the cost of the damage, but it turns a total loss into a partial one. None of this means the problem is solved. Texas still has millions of wild hogs, and new ones are still being born faster than most people would guess. But something real has changed. Farms using the old methods were losing the fight year after year. Farms using cameras, patience, and a well-timed trap are finally holding their ground, some for the first time in decades. The lesson isn't really about hogs. It's about what happens when you stop fighting a problem head-on and start studying it instead. The farmers who won this fight got better information, waited longer than anyone thought made sense, and pressed the button at exactly the right second. And now, the same technology quietly clearing a research backlog in Montana, and Guatemala is about to do the same for every camera watching a Texas fence line. So here's a question worth asking. If an animal this tough, this smart, and this fast breeding can be managed with nothing more than a camera, a little patience, and good timing, what other problems are people still trying to solve the hard way when a smarter way has been sitting right in front of them the whole time?